Welcome to Connecting Africa, the show that highlights the leaders and trailblazers connecting the continent through business. I'm Eleni Jakas, and this month we're looking at some of the big infrastructure projects that have the potential to drive economic growth across Africa. First, to East Africa, where three countries, Kenya, Ethiopia, and South Sudan, are coming together to develop a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure project. A new seaport, roads, rail, and airports are being built. And one sector, agriculture, is set to be a big beneficiary. Across the fertile fields of Kenya, vegetables and fruits are being grown for export. Agriculture is a massive sector here, accounting for a third of the country's gross domestic product.
We deal with more than 100,000 smallholder farmers across the country, and the numbers continue growing as the market grows. Now, farmers grow different varieties of crops.
But getting the produce to the African market has been a real challenge. Until now, it's been easier for Kenyan farmers to find buyers in Europe than in neighboring countries.
Why we're selling a little in Africa is basically the challenges on connectivity within the African continent, particularly when it comes to logistics either by road or by air. The logistics arrangements within Africa are still very low and as opposed to connectivity with either UK or Europe. You can imagine it takes 8 hours fly from Nairobi to Heathrow, but it takes longer hours to connect within the African context.
That is set to change thanks to a massive $26 billion infrastructure project, according to the Lamu Port South Sudan Ethiopia Transport Authority, or LAPSSET. Among its signature projects is a multi-million-dollar seaport. Lamu, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is used to seeing backpackers and tourists passing through. Despite some local opposition over the last few years, a huge land reclamation project has been underway to construct a 23-berth deep-sea port.
Lamu Port is the anchor project for the LAPSSET project. So the bigger ship, even the post-Panamax, that cannot dock at the port of Mombasa, can dock here in Lamu. And that way, it will bring a lot of transshipment trade. So we'll do big ship here, and then other small ship can come and take cargoes to other parts of the country and even to our neighboring countries.
But this massive project involves more than just a deep-sea port. It's also said to consist of state-of-the-art highways, domestic and international airports, a standard gauge railway line, an oil pipeline, and a fiber optic line for high-speed internet. All major infrastructure projects connecting Kenya, Ethiopia, and South Sudan.
The moment we now connect the three countries, then we shall have the movement of goods, the movement of people, the even development, the infrastructure, industrialization, all these components. And that is why the three partner states take it very important that we have this project realized, because it will improve the general welfare of the citizens in this area.
Work is already underway on constructing thousands of kilometers of new highways.
These highways are very significant to the region because it will improve the intra-Africa trade. So there will be a lot of business, goods will move, people will move easily, and it will open up our economies.
Of the three planned airports, one, Isiolo, has been upgraded from a domestic to an international terminal. And attention is now turning to putting down the rail, oil, and fiber optic lines.
Once the LAPSSET is complete and it's up and running, it's going to boost the inter-African trade. At the moment, Kenyan products get into Southern Sudan through Uganda. So you have to go through a long path to just access South Sudan because of the connectivity. So the completion of the LAPSSET will ensure that cargo that comes out of the North Rift particularly can access South Sudan and Ethiopia with ease without having to go through Uganda. That is what I'm seeing quickly.
The LAPSSET project is an example of what needs to happen to make the new continental free trade area a reality.
LAPSSET is very key in this promotion of the trade within the African countries. And that is the whole essence of Africa as a trading bloc by itself, and also inviting other blocs to come also be able to partner with this and see how they can also trade within the blocs.
A great example there of the sort of cross-border cooperation and regional infrastructure development that is needed to facilitate intra-African trade. And when we come back, from seaports to dry ports, how landlocked countries are building inland container terminals to improve logistics and trade across Africa. Welcome back. From seaports to dry ports, landlocked countries are developing inland container terminals to improve logistics and the movement of goods across the continent. In Rwanda, one dry port is bringing major benefits to farmers. Rwanda is one of 17 landlocked countries in Africa. Not having a seaport is often seen as an impediment to economic growth. But on the outskirts of Kigali, this dry port facility is proving to be a game changer in driving trade and spurring the country's growth.
Hi, my name is Sumit Bhardwaj. I am the CEO of DP World Logistics Limited Rwanda. DP World enables cargo flow within Africa and beyond. Kigali Logistics Platform is one of the best and the state-of-the-art inland dry port. The facility in Kigali is constructed on about 20 hectares. The facility consists of 50,000 square meters of bonded and non-bonded warehouses. We have open and closed yards for cargo operation. There is an inland container depot and an inland container terminal.
Capable of handling up to 50,000 containers per year, according to DP World, this dry port is connected to distant seaports by road. It is taking pressure away from the ports of Mombasa in Kenya and Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, which are overcrowded. Overcongested ports are a barrier to economic growth in Africa. Operating like a seaport, these inland container terminals offer services such as custom checks, which is bringing big benefits.
Before we started our operation, we found the logistics was done in a very primitive manner, and there were no proper procedures, there were no guidelines. The average truck turnaround time was sitting at a staggering 14-15 days, which was costing a lot to our clients. We managed to reduce this truck turnaround time to below 3, which is bringing a saving today to our customers between $12 to $15 million.
Rwanda's hundreds of thousands of coffee growers are one of many groups benefiting from the dry port.
The coffee industry in Rwanda is composed of about 400,000 farmers, and with a total annual revenue of about $70 to $80 million. The Kigali Logistics Platform as a trade enabler helps the farmers. It has made our life easier. It has reduced the turnaround time, which has enabled us to deliver to our clients faster, and also has provided us with a platform to have access to more markets. So we sell faster and to more people.
The Kigali Logistics Platform has also installed Rwanda's first cold storage unit, which is bringing huge benefits to the country's vegetable growers.
It's a state-of-the-art modular cold store, and we have 500 square meters of frozen and chilled section. Now the chilled section is maintained at an ambient temperature anything between 6 to 8 degrees centigrade, which is good for fruits, vegetables, medicine. This cold store has changed the lives of farmers and perishable exporters in Rwanda, because previously we often used to find that the cold chain was broken. So now, with the help of this cold store, the goods can have a longer sustainable shelf life.
And with the African Continental Free Trade Area, business between countries is set to increase further.
DP World is investing We are also setting up ancillary services, logistic services, and connecting the various dotted line which can qualify and support the implementation of AFCFTA. This is going to open a lot of venues and a lot of opportunities for the intra-Africa traders to do trade seamlessly.
And with the success of the Kigali logistics platform, DP World already has expansion plans.
There are plans to expand this project to DRC border. We are looking into setting up a similar kind of facility on Rubavu and Rusizi border to service our clients in eastern part of DRC. Some of the projects are already on a due diligence phase. More is coming.
When we come back, we look at energy infrastructure and Africa's huge solar power potential. Welcome back. Now, the lack of energy infrastructure to light up homes and power businesses is still a major issue across much of Africa. In its Africa Energy Outlook for 2022, the International Energy Agency says the need for the continent to find cleaner sources of energy is more important now than ever.
Today, 600 million people are without electricity in Africa. In terms of clean cooking, about 1 billion people in Africa, they have no clean cooking and using agricultural waste, animal waste for their cooking, which has serious health impacts, especially on women and children.
The IEA says universal access to affordable electricity, including clean cooking fuels, can be achieved by 2030. But the lofty goal requires a $25 billion annual investment, and solar energy is where the continent has the greatest potential.
About 40% of the global solar radiation comes to Africa, but yet only 1% of the global solar electricity capacity is in Africa.
One African company, the Axion Group, is planning to address the energy infrastructure deficit by bringing solar power to several countries. I sat down recently with its CEO, Hassanein Hiriji. Hassanein, great to meet you. Give me a sense of what Axion does.
Axion basically is doing infrastructure and services on the African continent. We're investing and operating on the long run in those fields, that is to say energy, telecom, and financial services.
Why have you picked some of the biggest growth sectors to be plugged into?
Because it's where you can make fastest disruption. 1.1 billion Africans, and today barely we've got 30% that are connected to a grid, which is very low. In my home country, in Madagascar, we are talking about 12 to 14%, which is very low. We're developing telecom, remote rural sites on the countryside, and we're seeing that when we're bringing some telecom signal, people are automatically using it for voice, for data, for everything. Today, if we can accelerate and bring electricity, they will use and consume more and more. What we started to do is not only producing green energy, but also distributing it directly to the customer, not waiting the central electricity board to come and distribute it. We're building a small production unit and we're distributing it straight with the decentralized electricity grid to the final customer in small villages. Today we're covering 50 villages in Madagascar. We've started 50 villages. We're connecting 10,000 households. That is to say 70,000 people are using our electricity grid, which is decentralized, decarbonated, and fully digitalized. They buy with the coupon with their mobile money phone, and they just plug in their prepaid metering.
You're established in Madagascar, but you've also got your eyes set on other countries to help fill some of the energy needs.
In Madagascar, we've developed the biggest solar farm of Indian Ocean called Ambatulampi. We've developed 40 megawatts of green energy. It was the first solar farm in the country. Now we're developing a new solar farm of 20 megawatts in Senegal on the new port, or mineral port of Dakar. We're also working on 2 projects on the continent focusing right now in Gabon on a project, and in Mozambique we're discussing on a project as well. Production needs of renewable energy is going to be a huge challenge because first you've got a huge growing demand and that is not for the moment covered. Secondly, you've got still a lot of coal or fuel oil factories that needs to be totally converted. The legacy factories of power on the continent are 90% made of fuel oil.
Exactly, fossil fuels, right? And that's the issue. But then how are you able to convince governments or convince players on the ground that renewable is the way to go? Because the counter argument has been, we've got these fossil fuels, we've got an abundance of coal, we've got gas, we've got, oil. Why should we be investing so heavily in renewable energy when we've got something in abundance?
Because today they're seeing the cost. The first analysis grade is the cost. The cost of renewable is lower now when you see the fuel price with the Ukraine crisis, when you see the fuel of the price of fuel. I mean, you make your calculation, it's cheaper with renewable first. Secondly, everybody now is totally aligned with green energy. Everybody knows that renewable is the solution.
COP27 is going to be held in Egypt, and there's a big discussion about where Africa stands when you still have to industrialize. What are your thoughts?
Don't you think that there is a huge injustice? We are the people who are polluting less. We are the one today who are not participating much to the global warming. And hence, the consequences of the global warming are happening on our continent. Don't you think there is here an injustice? It's imbalanced. What's in it for us now, for the next coming decades? You're pushing us to participate, but we're already transforming our energy mix. We're already pushing the renewable. But how now can you help us to solve this injustice in terms of the effects of the global warming? I think this is going to be a huge challenge. You see massive typhoons, massive drought, massive global heat in our countries, global warming. How can we help us now?
Has your life and world as a business changed since the Continental Free Trade Area came into effect?
Today, we are not seeing immediately the effect of this agreement yet. The will is there, it is starting to be implemented. On the energy space, it has already happened in certain West African countries, but it needs to enhance and to be accelerated. So having this agreement totally into force will help us to unlock and develop very fast.
Some great opportunities there for solar power across Africa in the years to come. And when we come back, Africa's newest super bridge on one of the continent's busiest trade routes. Welcome back. Next to one of the busiest trade routes on the continent, the North-South Corridor, and how the construction of a bridge is boosting trade between several countries, which is a key objective of the new African Continental Free Trade Area. It's a new day along this busy trade route. This is Kazungula Bridge, a 900-meter-long structure with 2 vehicle lanes, a rail track, and pedestrian walkways.
The North-South Corridor stems from Lubumbashi in the Democratic Republic of Congo, right down to Durban, South Africa. And Kazungula is one of those connecting points.
The bridge is a joint venture between Botswana and Zambia. What was here before, a pontoon ferry, was the only option to cross the Zambezi.
If the river is in flood, some of the ferry boats are broken. Trucks stand here between 2.5 days and it can go up to 7.5 days. It is a bottleneck in the North-South Corridor. It adds to transport costs and I can add a few other issues as well.
Just 2 trucks could use the ferry at one time. Among its users was Memory Lambi.
The ferry, it was very difficult for us. We are having a big challenge actually before, because sometimes we're gonna find the queue, it's maybe 10 kilometers to Kazungula, Then maybe you stay 2 weeks, 1 week, just waiting to cross to Zambian side.
We witnessed a lot of bad things before the coming of the bridge. A lot of accidents were recorded. We lost so many lives. There are so many property because the pontoon most of the time was overwhelmed.
That's why the opening of this $259 million bridge is being seen as an example of the African Continental Free Trade Area's goal to boost intra-Africa trade.
The old facility we used to have, when we've really done a lot of work, we've pushed through, we'd have 80 trucks docking. Yeah. But today, we're talking of an average of 244 trucks a day coming in. As at yesterday, we received 286. So the number keeps on rising.
The bridge is a very welcome addition, but so too is a one-stop border post. A one-stop shop where all paperwork and custom checks for both Botswana and Zambia are processed at just one location.
Our drivers will come through over the bridge into Zambia. They don't have to stop in Botswana. They'll drive right through into Zambia. And as they arrive in Zambia, their export and import processes are done from within one space.
For Memory, who has been driving the North-South corridor for 8 years, carrying copper from the DRC to Durban, using the one-stop border post has made her life a lot easier.
I came today from Botswana. I just came straight to Zambian side. I'm pushing my documents. If they are ready, I may start moving tomorrow morning.
And with trucks bringing increased trade to the region, attention is now turning to developing the rail line.
I see rail cargo becoming a prominent feature. The railway line ideally is to carry more cargo. So we're looking at facilitating an increased traffic flow in terms of cargo by rail, because the rail can always carry more than trucks.
An exciting new dawn for trade along the Kazungula Bridge. And that's it for this month's Connecting Africa. If you want to know more about the subjects we cover on this program, you can check out our website. Until next month, let's keep on connecting.